Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Show and Tell with Amilz. Hey, man.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, good. Thanks for joining.
Hey,
Um,
happy to be here.
I'm super glad to have you. We're going to talk about Tapcash today, which was your contestant in the Grizzlython Hackathon. Now, I guess we're still waiting like a week while we're streaming this. It's still 1 week away. So yeah, we don't really know if it's been a winner or not, but we'll see that soon enough. But that shouldn't prevent us from checking it out, see how you build it, look at structure, etc., etc. The goal of these show and tells is that people get a bit more familiar with how we work on the Solana ecosystem, how tools are built, how people like you build those. So yeah, let's do that. I'd love, a brief intro of yourself, who you are, what you're doing, what you're working on, and then feel free to dive into how did you get started on Tapcash?
Sure. Yeah, thanks. Amilz, or Aaron, you can call me, and I have been developing in Solana maybe two or 3 years now. If you're on YouTube, you could probably poke around. I did like my Hello World video when I started to learn how to program. And,
Nice.
with some goals kind of around. I really just wanted to find a way to track my staking rewards on Solana, and I
Right.
totally went down the rabbit hole and have been doing this ever since. So
That's awesome.
I think that the thing that really gave me the itch though, when I started diving in, was when I was able to send my first SPL transfer. I sent like $1 of like USDC, and it really just gave me a sense of what this technology was capable of,
Yeah.
and really like seeded, I think, for me what actually just became this project Tap, um, which I really feel like takes advantage of the power of that
Right.
tool, both Solana and USDC. So
Right.
yeah, that's kind of how I got started in Solana. Before that, I spent a little over 10 years in the energy industry. I was doing innovative technologies, and during COVID, I kind of made the career shift because I just felt like I was very invigorated by the pace of change on Solana and crypto, and
Yeah.
it's been a whirlwind of the past couple of years, but that's kind of how I got going. So
Last 3 years have been a great decade, so to say.
yeah, exactly. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. Yeah,
Yeah.
my white hair certainly would speak to
I
that.
guess I can speak to that too. And but then, so before you started on Solana, you were working as an engineer, a software developer in this industry, in the electricity industry, or was it
No,
something totally
no
different?
software at all. I was in kind
Wow.
of product management, product development, and
There you go.
I taken maybe like Fortran and a Python class in college, but not really much formal background in software.
That's cool.
Other than in my product management capacity, managing some products that had software components, so working with software engineers, but never building it myself.
That's awesome. You seem to be super proficient. From my angle, you seem to be hyper productive, if I can say so. I think I called you a machine before. That's all. That's all compliments. That's all with the best of it. It's cool to see that you managed to get up to this level in a relatively short time. Then,
yeah, well, I appreciate that. I would say I definitely could not have done that if not for my partner on the project Tap, Austin. He has been just an incredible mentor, and
right.
I've found that both having access to a great mentor and being a mentor to others in this space is just really important, because it's so easy to get blocked on like one line of code, and it can just kind of stump you. And once you're unblocked, it just unlocks this whole world of new stuff. And Austin has been and is a terrific partner for me. And I try to kind of pay that respect forward to others in the space. And Yeah, I think there's tons of resources. I love that, like, there's so much self-learning available in this space
Yeah.
online, and now with ChatGPT, I have like a personal, like, college professor kind of at my fingertips, which is it just all the more reason to just keep diving. So it's really cool.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I think it's one of the few industries where you can actually make a serious step without having proper education. I mean, we cannot be like doctors or
Right.
anything like really important for people. Sure, you want this person to have their education, but in terms of software, if it works, it works. I'm super practical myself. I don't care too much about the art of it. I mean, I appreciate good software. Don't get me wrong. I think I can do a job at making that, but yeah, I'm not too obsessed about the art itself. I think if you get something out that works, it's as important. And if you have tools like ChatGPT and Copilot has been for me personally a great tool. It's just yeah, my a game changer really. So
For
that's
sure.
awesome. Cool. So yeah, I'd say let's dive a little bit into Tap, and I guess is it true this one of the ideas that sparked this was a tweet from Anatoly?
Yeah, he tweeted, it was maybe last year. I found it again while I was doing some research for my pitch deck. But there's
Right.
a clip you should share here in the video. He basically said something to the effect of, we've built this kind of great foundation that is Solana. All you really need is two engineers to go run with that platform and build an amazing kind of financial app for
Right.
everyday people. And I think that, coupled with my own kind of aha moment when I discovered what I was capable of with
Yeah.
Solana, really did inspire it. The other, I'd say, inspiration for this really is, if I go into crypto Twitter or Discord, every single person I talk to has a Phantom wallet and knows what NFTs are and
Sure.
SPL tokens. And when I step away from my computer, and you and I were just chatting about this, like when I step away from my computer and talk to my friends in the real world, and go to a bar with my friends, not a single person has a Phantom wallet.
Yeah.
Occasionally, a friend will have a Coinbase account, and despite me explaining in different ways what I do every day, it's really not tangible for the average person.
Yeah.
And my I'd say, like, kind of my fundamental goal with this project was to allow an average person that doesn't know anything about crypto to log a transaction on the blockchain without even knowing it.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was really a driving kind of thing in the back of my head here. And yeah, it's been
Awesome.
good.
Do you feel like you succeeded with that goal with Tapcash or Tap?
I do. I mean, there's definitely a long way to go, but I sent my app. I sent the app the same day we submitted to my mom, and I didn't tell her what to do with. I didn't tell her how to use it. I just said, "Hey, will you download this and send me $50?" And she did it without me explaining how to do anything.
Awesome.
And I could go in on Explorer and see your transaction, and that was really satisfying. Regardless of where this goes or what comes out of this, there's a lot of work to go into creating such an easy user experience. And she even said it was simple, as easy, and I was okay, great. I will take that as a win, no matter what Anatoly thinks of it.
Yeah. Or the jury. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, I think a lot of people in the space actually agree that most crypto apps are only for the crypto savvy, and like you're either hiding the key pairs and making it so that people actually don't really sign consciously; they just use blockchain without knowing it, which is also not great. It's an interesting it's going to be an interesting process to see where this lands. But yeah, I'd say, can we take a look at the app first, maybe, to see what you build, how the UI is, and then we can dive into how you actually build it.
Yeah, and just one thing on that last comment that I would add is, I kind of imagine, when I think of comparable products to Tap, and we'll show you in just a second, I think of Venmo or Cash.App, and I kind of imagine if those platforms were built on Solana Rails, it would be a lot easier for Venmo or Capash to say, hey, user, we're implementing this new security feature where you can take self-custody of your account keys, or whatever they want to call them. And I think that would be a much easier way to onboard somebody than to say, hey, download this wallet that you don't really understand, and like buy some NFTs, and by the way, you need some crypto in your wallet. And so one of the things that I think about in terms of the long-term vision here is optional off-ramps to folks to be able to take self-custody and or like take their funds to another wallet or whatever, if and when the user is ready to do that, but not force them into that at the beginning.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that feeling. Like there's I think a lot of these apps we use today, and you and I use them, and the people we hang out with online sure use them, but none of my, let's say, normie friends use them. Like they don't care. And as you said, some of them do have some crypto, but like, yeah, whatever. They don't intrinsically care. It also doesn't bring them any benefits. So if we want to take the example of handing somebody $5 bill, like if I'm in the Netherlands, where I'm from, we have ways to share people links, and it works with any bank app. So we don't need it. It's not going to be of any benefit. And then it's only going to be downsides from here, because now we'll first, in like, let's say the Dutch example, my buddies will have to get USDC. Now, in order to do that, you need to get like an on-ramp like Coinbase or Binance or Kraken, and go there and you pay like a 2% fee. And then you're going to swap it in dollars. You're also going to pay for that. So you end up with like, I don't know, 90% of what you put in there. It's the classical South Park example, and it's gone, right? And then to wire it to somebody on lightning speed, like great, 12 seconds finalization. It's all amazing. I mean, honestly, it is. And then to only transfer it back. So there's a lot of things, but I think that's in a very privileged country, the Netherlands, where banking is generally very well done.
Yeah.
On the other hand, there's apps like Decaf. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Decaf.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they solve these things for, I think they're focusing on Latin American countries right now, but basically underbanked countries, and give people access to USDC so they can receive dollars, and they can actually cash it out in a local place. And this is where I definitely see also utility. Like it's the permissionless system, because in an underbanked country like Guatemala or something, like or even Colombia, where I spend a bunch of time, the amount of people that don't have a bank account or can't get it is just huge. Talking about like half the population or something, and that's just
absolutely. And I would say the kind of cash to USDC on and off ramp to me is one of the most promising opportunities. And it was probably after I had my aha moment, it was the first, I wish I had it handy, the first like kind of product I sketched out is like, how do we make this work? And just in terms of kind of non-software logistics, there's a lot of work to be done there. And anybody that's doing that work, it's amazing work. And I love it. And I think if anything ever happens with Tap, I would love to pursue that as a path, because there are so many people that there's a reason. If you look at our website, I frame the language around digital cash. I really think that treating this as cash and people feeling ownership of it as cash is like really what we're kind of missing right now. And so I think Solana Pay is gonna, really has an opportunity to flip that on its head a bit, because it makes it real. USDC loses a little bit of value in my mind. It's always backed one for one, but if you can't use USDC the same way you can use a dollar bill, it's like, it's not quite the same. And so there's a lot of things we need to do to bridge that gap, I guess. So.
Yeah, there's a bunch of things to it, and that's like I think money serves a bunch of purposes, right? And it's always related to value. But you getting a coffee at like Starbucks or something, you're probably fine with tapping your card because it's not like a very much slower or faster. And then if you're like in the Apple ecosystem, sure. Actually, Apple, Google Pay as well. Like you tap your phone and you're done. It's very common right now, so we don't need the extra layer on top of it. So, yeah, interesting stuff. Let's take a look. I think I'm gonna add your. Yeah, there you go.
All right, so I'm gonna show you guys an emulator here, but we do have I do have this on my phone. I can just show you real quick if you can still see me, but
yeah, we can.
I do have it on my phone. I'm going to use the emulator just for ease of the app here. And so actually you just see, since I'm already logged in on the computer, there's a sign in with Google. So what we're using here is a Web3 auth, which creates a key pair based on a user's Gmail address. So very simple, easy onboarding process. User creates an account and we'll see basically a screen like this, but with a zero balance.
Right.
And as you can see in that on-ramp exercise, there's no mention of crypto, and there is none here. A user can use this app completely without knowing a thing about crypto. And so for our MVP, we've enabled credit card deposits through Circle. So if I go into my settings, I've got basically my account information with a credit card and the ability to add funds. Since we're just operating on DevNet right now, we didn't implement a withdraw funds because there's not really anywhere for the funds to go.
Sure.
And so a user can do something like deposit $11 to their account. Right now, this is using a credit card, but and we can look in the code, but we're using like Circle SDK here, so we can easily basically turn on ACH transfers or wire transfers if and when we talk. Right now, we're getting user feedback, but if users tell us, "Hey, this is important," then we'll go do that. So as you can see, that happened. This is actually a multi-step process on the credit card transactions. So this may not be reflected immediately, but we've built our own kind of like parsing engine here. That loading screen you saw there was basically a query to the Solana DevNet and getting all the transactions associated with this user and parsing them into a way that's meaningful and useful to the average Joe. Right. Similarly, we can send funds. So I forgot which I'm on right now, but let's say I want to send, we talked about Austin earlier.
Right.
This what's happening here is we're querying a backend. We've got a Firebase set up. And so this is querying our user account list. And I want to send him $50. I can send a transaction, verify. And so what's happening here in this send function is I think a really interesting one. And, it'd be interesting to kind of debate this with the industry a bit. But the user, in this case, me, I'm signing my transaction with my Web3 wallet. And then that transaction is part of an on-chain program that we built for this, which is effectively like a multi-sig wallet. And so that program is basically signing the transaction, approving the transaction, and I guess really like validating the transaction that it meets the criteria that we've accepted for it. And then the transaction hits our backend, and we are also signing that transaction. And the reason, I think there's a number of reasons to do that, but for this case, and I know that any like crypto native, anybody who's watching this is probably like kind of crawling in their skin because they kind of don't like that. But
I think it makes sense. I'm curious, like why did you decide to do it? But
so, given that we are abstracting all of the crypto away from the user here, and I think it's extra important that we have an extra layer of security for the user, and we didn't have time to implement it for our for the hackathon submission. But what it enables us to do is allow like a two-factor authentication process where the user can sign with their auth app or enter in a password or get a text message or whatever, and us get that again on the back end before approving that before basically making another signature on the account. So I think secure. I mean, at the end of the day, security is probably the biggest. Sorry for not having this centered. Probably the biggest thing. And the great thing about our program is like we can easily make that field optional at some point, and the user would be able to basically toggle that off if they didn't want it. And it's not important to me that I have that control, but I want to basically have the default for the average non-crypto user to feel extra secure with the product before they go and choose to not have that extra signing authority.
Yeah, I think there's some interesting. We should talk about this offline because, like, with the Kin Foundation, where I used to work before, we were very used to intercepting transactions and send out a webhook to the backend because all these transactions are paid for by the developer. So you want to be triple sure that you're not paying the fees for just some arbitrary person that just includes your signature and sends it to your server, right? So you'll sign it.
Yep.
And then on the server side, you can't really know. So you basically want to do something like webhooks. And I kind of feel like a 2FA is not very different. I mean, you basically have an asynchronous step between like the transaction. There's going to be something stopping it or pausing it, if you will, doing some verification and then letting it through. And I'm super interested to hear about how that's fixed. Yeah, amazing. So this looks super simple.
It is, and if it looks and feels simple, like that is by design. That's the point. And if you've played around in this space at all, there's a lot that goes under the hood to actually make something feel this simple to the user. And you mentioned something that I forgot to say in our signing. We are paying the gas fees associated with all of the transactions. So that's another way for the user to not have exposure or know what Solana is really.
Interesting. So it's good to see more people using this. We did it with Kin. We built a tool. We made it open source. So I went in the hacker houses and present that. And for a lot of people, it was like an eye opener. Oh, you can actually do this. So I think one of my soon, I'm going to put it on the list actually, is write a Solana cookbook document on how to do this, because it's not very hard. And once you have it, it's super powerful exactly for these kind of user scenarios. And just so, I mean, I guess we won't be looking at the app too much. If you go into your avatar there, is there anything else I can do? Okay, so here's the settings, withdraw feeds, provide feedback. That's it.
Yeah, interesting. Right now just for context here, like none of this existed prior to the hackathon. So the program SDKs, all of the back end and the front end, and this was both Austin and I's first time building a mobile app. So
very cool.
So we kind of had to pick and choose which features we wanted for proof of concept for the hackathon. And so it is I'd say feature light, but it is very strong bones and foundation to be able to build on. And like this week, for example, I've been playing around quite a bit with, Solana Pay.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fairly straightforward feature to add here. I'm a little reluctant to put it into the kind of production environment at this point, just because my audience doesn't really, target customer doesn't really know what Solana Pay is, and Solana Pay is not ubiquitous yet. And I think until we have a stronger kind of retail network supporting it, it's probably not something that we'll turn on. But it's just an SPL transaction behind the scenes, so it's and us verifying that transaction. So
yeah. Something else we need to talk about offline. I got ideas around this as well, and I can quickly sketch the idea. What I'd like to do is, instead of sending you, so you just send Austin, but instead of you sending it, how about I can basically give away something, make it a giveaway, and then you scan it and receive it. And I think this doesn't exist currently on the Solana ecosystem, at least not open source. And it seems like you got all the building blocks to make something like this happen. And it would even be like, for me on this stream, if I had a way to put a QR code on here, I do have a way to put a QR code, but I don't have the Solana Pay integration to do it. People could just basically scan it with their phone, sign the transaction, and receive it.
Yeah.
That's something that I would be super interested in.
Have you played around at all with TipLink?
I have not.
So TipLink basically, they're basically calling that I think it's like a link as a wallet link, something to that effect, where you get a QR code or a URL that is a wallet that it's a very hot wallet, and there's assets on there that you could either secure by logging in with a Gmail account or off-ramping to your own Solana account. And they just put out an API for that product, and I will pull this over, and I'll give you the link to this. But this is can you see this?
Yes, the presentation pitch deck.
Did it go into full screen for you?
Yep.
Cool. So I'll send a link to the pitch here, but I added that as one of my first kind of future integrations, because I think that vision of being able to basically push a button to transact, to send to folks via QR code or link is an amazing on-ramp tool. And I'm super excited about their product. And I think more things like that are very compelling. So
interesting. Definitely going to give that a go. I've been dreaming, like when I was at Kin, I just had a lot of people I just wanted to give some Kin, but then because I don't want to be their personal customer support in the world of crypto. So it needs to be either too simple for them to just not have to ask me, or somebody that's already a bit crypto savvy where I can just I can tell my brother, he'll figure it out, right? But that's one of the few in my world that do this. So
that's right.
Gonna definitely check out TipLink, and then I guess we might be able to pull up the editor and check out how it's built. And then I think in order to make it logically sense, let's start with the web app, the mobile app. What is it? What are you guys using?
React Native, and again, this was basically our first foray into mobile development work, and so I'd say very much a learning experience for both of us. And nice. Our understanding kind of going into this is that React Native was a good kind of a good entry. We both have done a lot of work in React, but for one, and then being able to basically build an iOS and Android version with kind of one build felt like a good way for us to go, because this product is not intended to be an Android or iPhone only, and we both do TypeScript and React, so it just seemed like a natural place for us to start.
I think React Native is great for these kind of things. I used it fair share, and it's just super compelling.
It's really it was very, very good for what we did. And I would say, for the most part, I found it pretty easy to work with. There was, we basically built out the front end, and then built it and put it on our phone, and all of the styling was messed up. And I guess I forget exactly. It's been a minute since we touched it, but there's an option where you turn off developer mode in the settings, and so that your emulator just like it all completely messed up when you basically toggle that button. And
right.
we didn't really have I didn't really have enough time to dig in and like why that's even an option to like create it in a non-functional ugly way.
Sure. Why would you? Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. So I you're in a major time crunch for the hackathon. So that's kind of where I don't know. That was a frustrating part of the process.
Yeah. Not the kind of stuff you want to be busy with while also doing more interesting stuff, I guess.
That's right. And to that point, I mean, probably the worst part about the whole process was just getting like Android Studio set up
really?
from scratch. I mean, I feel like some of this stuff is just like intended for I don't know. It's like the docs for getting set up. There's like 100 steps to get set up, and it's just like a very frustrating process. But finally got it. And anyway,
thanks for a great quote. Worst thing about building the Solana app was setting up Android Studio.
Yeah, right. That's true. Yeah. That's true. I had a lot of fun building the program and doing the SDK stuff, the Solana stuff. So
awesome.
That was really cool. So I don't know how deep you want to get into this.
I mean,
but basically,
I guess so. What I'd like to see, and this is where all React apps are built differently. Generally, global structure. I see you have authentication screen, home screen, splash screen. I think often it makes a lot of sense to start with the routes, or I guess pages on a mobile app, and figure out what's there. So you have this authentication flow. I guess initially splash screen.
Yeah, we just show the splash. That's just our tap logo. Then we go to authentication, which is basically where we are showing basically our login with Google. And this is like I was actually surprised to find out that you could customize this kind of Google login text. I'd never used Google Auth. Actually, one of the cool things about hackathons, like Solana or not, like I think that these are a great opportunity to try and learn new things. And it's so fun talking to folks who just like start with an idea and build stuff that like they didn't know how to do beforehand. It's really, really fun. And so this was an opportunity to play with Google Login, which was a really neat and turned out to be a really awesome tool for us. And then the meat of this is really in our home screen. So we are. I don't really know like the best way to talk through.
Sure. No, I think I'm more than happy to guide a little bit because authentication, we're now logged in. I see you're fetching here on line 24, you're fetching the user data and the profile. So that's already there. And then I think from looking at the app, you basically only have one screen, right? It's the home screen. Forget about settings. Like, sure, settings. We're not going to do the settings screen because that's too predictable. Like, sure, we have an understanding how it works, but this where, as you said, the meat of it. So, assuming we're logged in, we have the user. This is our world. You're fetching the recent data activity. We can check in the API access in a little bit, but so you're just preparing the main screen here. And if I understand correctly, this is just your balance, and then a send button, right?
That's right. New users will see we basically have a new user welcome message that has folks navigate to our deposit page, our add funds page.
Right.
But aside from that, we're just showing balance, send button, recent activity are kind of the three major components here that we're displaying to the user.
Right. Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is all seems relatively straightforward. A few handling here to make sure that the UI works how it's supposed to work. Like hitting back doesn't close the app, or it does. I forget what it is on Androids, but.
I think we disabled that back action. Yeah.
Awesome. And then what I'm also so often it's a bit of a catch-22 in a crypto app. You either need to have crypto or you need to get it, and getting it is hard. And this is what it's all in line with the problems we talked about onboarding people initially, and then with this circle. So let's actually go through that flow first. Let's consider I'm a new user. So I get this circle, like top up funds route, I think, or page, as you said. So we can briefly check out how that works. In fact, I didn't know that Circle had an SDK, so that's great.
Yeah, they do. I may actually jump here to our back end real quick, if you don't mind. In our back end, we have our Circle, and we've got we've created basically like a mock environment as well as an actual Circle environment. And I'll go through some of this other stuff in here later, but Circle has a Circle deposit function. I think it's in main. Yeah. So basically you get, we created basically a Circle client on our back end that takes in our API key, and they have basically a dev environment as well as a production environment.
Nice.
Which we use as our default. For DevNet, we are basically giving users a random credit card rather than entering in a fake credit card for demonstration purposes. It just didn't make sense for us to have users to enter in and us have to worry about
like 515151. What is it? Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So we just add a default one that worked with their SDK, which we got from here. And I forget your original question. But
we're looking at doing the deposit, and this is interesting to check here. There you go, deposit. So
we have there's a deposit function where we pass in basically all of the, they have some really specified classes associated with the card details,
right.
And some encryption functions in here that we have to pass to make sure that credit cards are secure. Another first for me is like messing with credit card payments. A little bit hairy, but seemed fun. It was fun to play around with.
And just for our understanding, I guess. So this Circle SDK, Circle's role here is accepting the payment, depositing it on Sol.
That's right. We basically specify, hey, give us. Well, they just deposit money in your bank account, and because Circle is, they're every chain and dollars. I actually think that the dollars settle in your account as dollars, but you can withdraw your dollars to any chain.
Right.
So
super powerful. Yeah.
So once our payment response is successful, we basically say create a transfer, which is using their SDK to a Solana wallet. And if you were not doing Solana, you could pass a different chain here. Yeah, exactly. Which is actually really cool. I mean, the more I've like spent time, it was really awkward timing when we launched the Grizzlython, because it was like the day Circle USDC depegged, and it's just like a little bit scary, but it's a really powerful tool. And I tweeted this while I was building this, is Circle is kind of like a money API. With Solana, it's like a cash API where you can go build anything. That it really makes you rethink what cash is and how it works. And I think Circle's just in a really good position. And I think what they're doing with like Eurocoin is really exciting, and where that can go with other currencies as well. So
yeah, this definitely looks powerful and easy to integrate. But I have very little experience with building with credit cards. I did it like once or twice. So
yeah, they fortunately walk through all of it, but it's definitely not all of it's super intuitive. I will not lie there. That I think that's just I think if you have credit card experience, this would probably be pretty intuitive and easy for you.
Right.
So I'm going to jump to just a bit to follow your question and just kind of follow the train of thought. So what happens is there is this create transfer function. So if we go to our handlers, we have a deposit handler. And when a user makes a deposit, we call that deposit USD DC function. And that is basically happening. Sorry. Yeah, so that happens. If that payment is successful, then we initiate a transfer to a destination address that's specified associated with that user.
Right.
Yeah. And so before that call gets made, you can actually see our request is this deposit args, which is basically this email address. We're looking up the email address for a user on our database and getting their USDC address, and that gets passed into this request, among other things. But we are using the email address often as kind of a key for lots of different data points, or not a lot. The few data points that we have on a user, we're anchoring around the email address. But we're using their USDC account, which is owned actually by our program. It's inside of the program that we created, and not like a native wallet, if that makes sense.
Interesting. Yeah, it does. So it's not your associated token account for your account plus SPL. It's just something different for your program.
It is actually an associated token account that is owned by the program, which I actually didn't know you could do before this. Programs can be the owner of associated token accounts, and you can basically
control
have
them.
Those controlled through your program. Yeah, which is really cool.
Yeah, very cool. Another learning moment for you here.
It's so fun. You just like start kind of crack all this stuff, and there's just places to learn all this stuff. So
awesome. So this seems simple enough. So this, from the front end, I say this email address, send them $50. Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
I pass these into the deposit method. Deposit looks up your USDC address and then hands it over to the Circle client, where you say, hey, deposit USDC. These are the things. And then you conveniently have a few to-dos here, which is great because you don't have to build the real thing. But all stuff that's not, I mean, this is basically repeating the same idea, right? It's like you're going to fetch it from somewhere.
That's
whatever.
Right.
Yeah. Awesome. So now said user has USDC, but not in their token account. They do have it in their, basically in their Tap account, right? So
that's right.
Yeah, and this is something. Yep.
Yeah. So if it's not too confusing, maybe I jump to the program to give context for what.
Yeah. Let's take a look at the program.
All right. All right. So. All right. So we have our anchor program, and then actually in our backend we've got program SDK, which we can maybe jump back and forth a little bit, but let's start in an anchor really quick.
Yeah.
And just FYI, I'm just took a glance at time. I can't believe we've been talking this long, but I have a hard stop at 1:15. So
okay,
got about
30 minutes from
left.
now. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Perfect.
All right. All right. And so just tell me to be quicker if I need to. All right. So we've got this awesome Tap app ID, and we basically have 1, 2, 3, 4 functions. Initialize bank, which is creating the Tap bank account. 2 is initializing a new member. So when you sign up with your Gmail account, we have an initialized new member workflow, which will create a account associated with that user. And so the way we have this set up is our bank has many members. A member can have many accounts. So I think we used a U8. So a user technically could have 255 or 56
different accounts.
different SPL token accounts. So
Sure.
the way it's set up is like a user could have a checking account, a savings account, a deposit account. And if you look in our pitch deck, which I would encourage you to do, is like, I think we can on-ramp folks to DeFi here without all the complexities of crypto. I think we can just have like some curated DeFi protocols. But in the future, if we wanted to turn on, say, like get a Bitcoin account or get a Solana account, or whatever, we can add those easily by just stringing accounts to the same user. And then we have the SPL token transfer, which is kind of that multi-signing piece. I don't know. Remind me where our jump off point was. Why did I take us here?
We're looking at deposit still, and then now a user has something in their account, and we were looking at like, okay, so now they have their account created on chain, and that's what this program gets invoked. So they
So that invokes basically this initialized member program, which will create a PDA associated with the bank, our bank, so Tap, and the user ID, which is basically their public key that comes off of the Web3 auth program.
Right.
And this is a pretty straightforward instruction. We just define the member, and that we log that member has been created, and then same step from the user flow. While their account is being created, we also initialize a new account with them as the member, and we define that we're only using USDC here, so the token mint is USDC. We've created some version control in here, so we've just set this as a V1. Their member PDA is passed into this, and the associated token account is created in the same step. So one of the cool things about Anchor, if you haven't done a lot with Anchor, is like you can initialize like a PDA or associated token account inside of the just your context declaration. So we're just saying init this account ATA with USDC and the account PDA, which is part of our program, as the authority. And so that's what's giving our program the authority for these transactions. And then in the send SPL, jumping ahead of myself here a little bit. So that's what happens when a member gets initialized. So if we go back to our back end source, we have our program SDK, and this was a really cool, I'd never done this before, so I was like really jazzed to do this, and I'm like, I can't wait to do more of this stuff. But
building SDKs,
it's super fun, and like it was like a little bit like, why are we doing this at first? And now that I have it, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. But we created this initialized new member workflow. And let's see if we can. So this gets called in our handler, and we can jump over to our handler in just a second. But basically, we pass in all of our accounts that are required for our Anchor. We have some kind of mainnet devnet checks here. That
auto airdrop, love it.
That was a handy one. So we create the member, we wait for that to happen. We created a method to get their member associated token account address, and then we create that account and we return that member account. And so then that member account gets, if we go to our handler, you should see that gets these got renamed. I think it's save member. We do a save member. So if they're not a member, we run through this process, fetch ATA, and then line
36 is where you actually invoke it.
That's right.
And then you have an ATA, and then you're going to connect it up to the user.
That's right. We do this. We call our database client. We add the member email address. We get like their profile picture, I think is what this is,
Yeah.
and their name and the user ATA, and the signer address is that is their Web3 auth address. So all of that gets saved into our database so that we can query. That's all we have about the user. We have some very basic information. So I can see your profile picture and get your name for queries. But this is the most important one, this user ATA, which is owned by the program and is used for all of the transactions in the program.
Awesome. Yeah, I think this gives an interesting overview. I guess Web3 auth, we should probably be able to fill like 4 hours live stream talking about Web3 auth, etc. I never used it myself. I did check it out when they were still called Taurus before the rebranding. It seems fascinating. It seems interesting. It seems very well needed. It also seems a little bit of like you're giving away a bit of your custody. I think that's not the case, but I still need to understand it. Let's not go that route. What I'm curious about. So I log in with Web3 auth. That's all social login. At some point, there's a key pair being generated for me because that's what we need, right? We need a key pair. Let's forget where it's stored. But what I'm curious about, and if you can pull it up, where do we actually sign with this key pair? Do they provide a sign method where you can just pass a transaction, they sign it, it signs it for you?
Yeah, so we are in our send transaction function. So we're still in these are our handlers on our back end.
Yeah.
User is basically sending, and they are signing with their private key through the send here. And we are on our send tokens back here. We're basically structuring the transaction request.
Right.
And getting the necessary PDAs that we need. So like our bank, we get that PDA. So we get all our accounts compiled. And then we build this anchor function that if we go back into our program, you see this send SPL.
Sure.
We really like to use this account strict as opposed to accounts, which requires us to pass in all of the accounts instead of just the ones that are not like native, just to make sure that we have everything.
Yeah.
So the signer, we're signing by this SDK payer is basically us, our bank. And then the from member is signing the transaction as well. But we are the fee payer. This is us. The provider is us. And then we do the send and confirm.
Awesome. Yeah. This looks very cool. Yeah, great. I think it's great to look at this. One of the questions you kind of already answered. I was wondering what type of finalization you were using, commitment you were using. It looks like everything confirmed.
Yeah, I always use finalize. You say that, and my mouse was over finalize. I always use finalized on the latest block hash, but usually I use confirmed. I think we use confirmed throughout.
Anywhere else?
Yeah, I think what given a little more time, we'll probably play around with processed on some of the transaction or on our recent transaction fetches. Actually, I think we may have used it in recent transactions now that I'm saying it.
Like as soon as it hits chain, it already appears.
That's right. This recent activity, there are some race issues where we needed to, I think, adjust that. And so if I go to our handler, recent activity handler, and this is, bless anybody who's done any work on explorers. It is hard work parsing the data, and that we're only parsing some small chunks of it, but I got a good taste of it here. classifying the different types of transactions as a deposit, a withdrawal, receipt. There's a lot of work to go in to make sure and get that right. And so I think in this get recent activity method, we might use
confirmed.
No, we use confirmed. Yeah, I think I may have played around with it, or if not, it's kind of on my things to look at some point. Just because I think that having this activity refresh quickly is an important thing. And it's I don't know if I mentioned, my day job, I work at QuickNode, so we did not build in. The only way to refresh this right now is either to execute a transaction or to go into this page and navigate back, so that users aren't like spamming RPC calls, because there's it's a pretty heavy RPC call, and I think there's probably some UX work to do here to give users the opportunity to refresh and maybe cache some of the existing transactions where you're just looking for the last one. Something like that. But for the most part, we haven't had any issues with recent activity. But that's something I might play with, is doing processed here.
Optimizing that a bit. I guess one of the things that would really help, like transactions, after they've been finalized, they will never change. So nothing stops you from like keeping track of this for a user. This is a common issue. I've been trying to fix this in a bunch of times. You're either going to pull it in and then pay for the waiting, pay for the fetching, actually literally pay for the RPC cost fetching it. So as you said, limit this. Another thing that I've seen, and I've been playing around with, but I never build it on large scale, is just cache it locally. So an app is only interested in its stuff. It can just shove it in an SQLite or something. Anyway, bunch of optimizations. Sorry.
I've actually been just doing a little bit of research the past couple of days on just like local storage for apps. So again, this is just kind of a new space for us. So just when everything's new, you just like have to. You only have so much time to research everything. So I think for most users, probably, I bet there's probably like local storage is probably adequate, or at least like storing the transaction IDs. I don't know. We don't have a ton of information, so.
I think while you're at it, like you might as well just fetch it, parse it, and then store it parsed. But there's a ton of ways to fix it, and that's amazing, man. I'm impressed with what you set up here.
Appreciate it. I mean, it was a lot of work, and I don't know. Austin will watch this at some point if he's not on, and like Austin is a tremendous developer, and I learned a ton from him always. And so
that's awesome.
He did a lot of great work. I'd say particularly on just like thinking through the architecture here. So really kudos to him. And I'd be remiss if I don't mention, we were really fortunate to get to work with Matcha Design Labs. They were a UI UX team, and they reached out looking for projects to work with at the beginning of the hackathon. And I knew up front that UI and UX was a really critical important of what we were trying to build here. And those guys were terrific. Arnold and Navani, just really thinking through the user flow and helping, ultimately create the UX and the UI that you see here. We made it work with the code, but they put a ton of thought into how to make it work, and gave us some really great Figmas to think about and throw away, and ultimately rolled with this design, and couldn't be happier. I highly recommend working with them if you ever have the opportunity to anybody. So
in fact, I think on Twitter I saw at some point during the hackathon that they shared like a whole UX flow diagram on how to navigate through the app. Super decent. And I was like, dude, I did PubKey by myself. I built it myself. I did design myself. I got Steve Clean, as he's known in the community. I got Steve involved in helping me with the community, but I did it all myself. I knew it was going to be. I had to compromise on a bunch of things, but yeah, at least I got it in there. But it looks so good, and like I think a good design is often getting rid of stuff. This is
totally.
super minimalistic. Yeah, this definitely looks great. But it also, I think, so if I remember, I should have thought of this before, fetched the tweet from Toli and fetched the diagram that I saw. But there's still a bunch of screens to be left to be implemented. If I recall the screen, you had I don't know, 12 screens or something. We looked at 3. So this might be a nice segue, and then we can wrap it up as well a little bit. Like, what's future plans? Like, let's not. This is not commitment time. You don't have to commit to anything. But if you were to continue on the app, you showed a few things like tip link integration. What's other stuff that you would love to implement or start with?
Yeah, it's a great question, and yeah, you're right. The diagram had tons of workflows, and
Right.
you know, I wish we could have built them all out just on the time crunch we had. We settled with this, but and I'm stoked with where we landed. I think, you know, this is more than a success for the hackathon.
Yeah.
You know, I think that, well, I'd say the most important thing for this in terms of viability with all of the like banking stuff right now is actually doing a deep dive on like regulatory and legal, not necessarily risk, but like feasibility. Yeah, viability of like having a user treat this like a custodial checking account.
Yeah.
And if that's not viable, like what do we need to do in the app to make it viable, or how do we need to communicate it to make it viable? That is something that gives me, I think there's so much opportunity here, but it makes me nervous in the current environment. So that's probably the most important thing that needs to happen. But beyond that, within the program, I'd say the thing that I'm most excited about, and I'd learned about this a little bit surface level before this process, completely forgot about it, but Token 2022, like the evolution of the SPL token program, has some functionality around like anonymous transfers that I think are really valuable for this type of use case.
Yeah.
And given that we're not on mainnet, and we don't have like 1 million users yet, I think that if that legal piece does prove to be viable, I think that would probably be a worthwhile look at refactoring to use Token 2022 to allow for anonymous transfers. And then I think really focusing on Solana Pay is probably the most important thing, I think, for the success of Tap. And there are a lot of great things happening outside of what we're doing to make Solana Pay like a viable option. And I think we'll need to look close at what's happening there and the pace of there, and whether or not we need to work on anything to help move that space faster.
Right.
But as I've done some research in the space, like all of the Cash apps, starting with like PayPal way back when, PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, they all start with peer-to-peer transfers like this and don't necessarily need the payment rails. So I actually think that we have like a very viable product, as long as we have a clean streamline on and off ramp. So the other thing that I would say is like top priority would be to get ACH and like have a user link their bank account. But you just saw the SDK. It's not hard to add that.
So matter of repeating stuff.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. This has been great. I learned a ton of things about the app, how it's built. So that's cool. Great reference, I think, for the future. If somebody wants to check out how app was originally built, once it does hit 1 million. I'm gonna.
Yeah, it's all open source.
So
that's
down
Nice.
there, I guess, down there is the link. Austin Mills GitHub, Tapcash. I guess we got a few more things. I mean, I also definitely give Aaron a follow on Twitter. And we did have somebody in the chat who's asking when Discord. So yeah, I mean, I guess so. A product like this, to take it really honest, really serious, the most serious reply to this thing. I don't think an app like this really needs community. I think an app like this needs like mom and dad people that use it and family from the nerds. Any ideas around that?
Yeah, it's Austin and I did an NFT project before, and Discord management is not our strength. Discord, you answered it perfect. I don't know that my target customer wants us to be on Discord necessarily.
Yeah.
I didn't talk about it in my answer to the last question, but I do think one of the most important things here is a really strong go-to-market and marketing campaign for average Joes. And I do think that requires, it'll probably require some money and a significant bit of work in terms of making this idea approachable to normal folks, because there are really strong incumbents. It's not, I really don't feel like Tap aims to disrupt Phantom or Backpack. I think those guys are doing great work and like keep doing that. But I think that like we are clawing at the heels of Venmo and Cash App and PayPal and looking for a way in that space. So
awesome. Yeah, it's interesting. And I think something to sum it up, I hope also people that are new into programming check this stuff. And I think you're a great example on how you can be a proficient programmer in a relatively short time. I mean, it took me way longer to get there. In the end, important thing is if you're productive. I mean, that's I guess, the thing. Another thing I wanted to touch on is that the technical limitations are not the hard part here. It's about social stuff, like how do you get this stuff to the masses? How do you actually deliver value? And then legal stuff, and especially if you're based in the US, right? And then crypto in the US is complicated. And I've spent a lot of time in Colombia. Like in Colombia, you can more or less pull it off without having to worry that much. Like, sure, there's regulations, but it's not as strict as in the US. And if you're a business like LSE or whatever, you put it out there, it's easy to get screwed, and that's clearly not that's not a great foresight. So luckily we on the channel we focus mainly on the technical stuff. So we awesome. I had a great time checking it out. Thanks so much for joining.
This was really fun. Really appreciate you setting this up. I had a really good time showing it. So yeah.
Awesome. I guess last question. Is there anything you want to plug? Something in the ecosystem, outside the ecosystem, something that you're excited about?
I'm obviously really excited about Tap, and so thank you guys for spending the hour listening in. I don't know. I'm really interested in these like real life practical things, and so my friends at Homebase DAO got a little bit of attention this week. So that I thought that was really cool, because that's those guys in terms of like legal and practical stuff have like really done all the securities law, and they've basically bought a house and tokenized it, and people who own shares in that house own securities, legal securities in the United States, and get paid a monthly dividend on the rent that's collected on that house. And
that's some innovation right there.
Yeah, I think that's like really hard. That's something that uniquely Solana makes possible, like a monthly dividend at such a small amount. Like, we're talking about monthly dividends of a couple dollars. We'll be able to like be airdrops to people without even thinking about it. And that's something that I think like is unique to Solana because of the low cost and fast transfer fees. So they got a shout out today, which was cool. Like totally shout them out, and so did Jeremy, the CEO of Circle. So
That's
That's
awesome.
cool. I'm excited to see them. I love that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
I think the hackathon is awesome, and excited for the next one. So if you're on the fence at all, I would just say like just make something, even if it's like nothing. And my first hackathon I did a year ago, and like I went to a hacker house, and like I scratched my head all day, didn't know what I was gonna do, and like I finally just like did something, and now I did this, and it's just like it's really fun to just keep pushing yourself.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was in between. Like I just got laid off. I was kind of in a weird period. I took some time off, so I was kind of on the verge of delivering something or not, and then I put myself to it, like because I was searching for excuses, like how you sometimes do, like I don't know, like I'm whatever. Forget about the excuses. I started doing it, and it might sound super cliche, but for me, like the whole feeling of delivering it in time, that was I already won. Like for me, it was like hackathon is over. I did this, and then sure, if I got a prize, whatever. I honestly don't care, and that was like a great thing, and it's like good feeling. And like next time that there's a hackathon, I'm gonna put myself through it. Even I have a ton of excuses why not, and what like people don't want to use my product. That's fine. I'm going to build something, and it's super inspiring to see.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. Good for you. And I honestly, like one of the toughest things about the hackathon is like not being able to like dig into everybody's project, because like there's so many cool things going on. And honestly, like I know we're about out of time, but like I really want to dig into your stuff, and like let's find some time after this to just I'd love to pick your brain a little bit and learn more about it.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, awesome. Thanks so much. Thanks everybody for checking in. If you have any ideas on what's next, BManNL on Twitter. So if you have other projects that you want to see featured here, I'd love to do it. I'd love to learn more and show out the ecosystem. And I think with that, we can call it a day. Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.